Thanks for checking out Mornings with Lone Star podcast on irlonestar.com. Don't forget, Mornings with Lone Star is live every weekday on irlonestar.com from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., covering all things Texas country music and Montgomery County news, with weather and traffic at the top and bottom of every hour. You can call in at any time with a song request at 936-647-3776 or Facebook message us on Facebook or tweet us on Twitter. Mornings with Lone Star would like to say a special thank you to the sponsors of Mornings with Lone Star, our neighbors at Conroe Coffee in downtown Conroe, Catering by All-Star, Michal B. Young, financial representative with Northwestern Mutual in the Woodlands, and the Texas Renaissance Festival in Magnolia, Texas. Is right there. Dime Store Cowgirl, her new song from her hit album. You need to check out that album. It's pretty good. And you're listening to Mornings of Lone Star here at irlonestar.com, 9:05. It is me, the Candidates. Nathan Arizotti in the studio with us with Montgomery County Lifestyle. Nathan.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have a great show launching this week for Meet the Candidates. We're basically booked all week at 9 o'clock on Mornings of Lone Star, which is exciting. Folks, voting is coming up. Early voting happens. What are the dates? Give me the dates, Nathan.
Early voting starts on the February 16th.
Okay, and then regular voting, the one day?
March 1st.
There you go. Really easy, folks. mctx.org/election. Today, we have Craig McMichael on the line. We have no idea where he is. I think he's in a bunker or somewhere. I'm not really sure. But
he was in the bunker 3 different tours over in the sandbox, I'm sure.
Well, Craig McMichael is on the air. So it's really weird. He's on the phone. It's always weird. Craig, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, good. Thank you so much for taking the time and being on the air with us. This is something that's pretty interesting because this is a big deal, if a lot of people didn't know. And I've been reading a little bit about the Texas 8th Congressional District, and that's what you're running for, correct?
That's correct.
And that's a long thing. A lot of people are like, what the heck is that? So I'm really excited about this hour we get to spend with you, and you get to talk more about what you plan on doing if you take over. What's the short term for it? Is it called just CD8? Is that what it's called?
That's correct, CD8.
Okay, that's the slang term.
Not many people use that.
Okay, so what do they use?
Congressman, representative. It's of the Congressional District, 8th District, but a lot of people just, they assume that that's their guy, their woman, or whatever.
Okay, so when we're looking at the 8th Congressional District, what are we looking at map-wise, Craig?
It's pretty big. It's a little bit of Harris County. It's all of Montgomery, Walker, San Jacinto, Trinity, Madison, a little bit of Leon, Houston, Grimes.
Man.
It's a big district.
That's
a lot
big.
of driving.
Now, when you're looking at running for a position in office, what is your experience with that? Like, why CD08? Why choose?
It's my home district. I grew up here. Left, obviously, for 10 years in the United States Marine Corps and came back just really dissatisfied with our representation. I feel we deserve better than that. Why not run for your home district?
That makes a lot of sense. And so you were in tell me more of the experience. You were for 10 years in the United States Marine Corps. Is that what you said?
That's correct. 10 and a half, actually. Went in 95, got stationed in Hawaii, which is a very difficult duty station for a young man to be in. And, from there I got transferred to California and ended up with the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. I was in Darwin, Australia on September 11th. My unit was the first ground troops to go into Afghanistan. And then I came back, and they wanted combat experienced Marines for Iraq, and so I ended up doing 2 tours in Iraq. And the third one was kind of rough. Lost a lot of guys, and I just made a choice at that time because I'd planned on staying for 20 and retiring. I made the choice to come back home and try to live a normal life.
And how's that going?
It was going really well. Politics was never something I aspired to. Actually, my last political campaign was 8th grade student council. But 2013, I remember listening to the radio, and our current representative from District 8 was on talking about a fiscal cliff bill they'd just passed and added $4 trillion to our debt. I have 2 kids myself, and I just started worrying about their future, our country, and how we were going to maintain an economic powerhouse if we were spending ourselves to death. And so I remember him being on the radio, and his excuse for it was he didn't like the bill, but it was the best he could do. And it really set with me the wrong way because I had a lot of good men and women that I served with that sacrificed a lot for this country, and they deserve better than the best they could do.
Now, with that in mind, there's something that's bigger than just local politics because this run or election is big. This is a bigger deal, I guess, in a sense, for the United States. And the one thing I don't really get is the impact this CD8 will have on the future of Montgomery County, but also the country itself. Do you mind going with, say, I don't know how you can do it in a feasible way, but describe what importance is the CD08 and then the impact it can have?
Yeah, any congressional seat's important. From Congress, you really control the power of the purse. You also have the power of impeachment, which should have been used already. We have a congressman now, and I think what you see if you really start watching them is anybody that watches wrestling will understand this. The Republicans and Democrats in Washington, D.C. really are like wrestlers. They both know the outcome of the match. They put on a show for us to make us think they're doing the right thing, but they have no desire of doing what's best for our constitutional freedoms or this republic. It's all about maintaining power for themselves. And so what I remind people is the founders intended everyday citizens to stand up and serve this country in Washington, D.C. The government's sole purpose is to protect our God-given freedoms. We don't have that representation anymore. We have career politicians that are in it for themselves. And so it's time to elect men and women that actually want to do what's best for the country and not what's best for them.
Okay, with that in mind, on your personal campaign, what kind of things are you wanting to do? Is it more of you just want to have that kind of morals inside Congress, and you think that's what will help, or do you actually have a few ideas of your own specifically towards making this country what you think it should be?
Yeah, some of the platforms we really push, the fair tax. I think the IRS needs to go. The income tax needs to be shut down. I'm a big fan of term limits for congressmen, and we also would like to see a privatization of the VA. I think the VA is an absolute disaster. But I'll remind people is, the old saying that sometimes it takes one bolt of lightning to start a fire. I think people have given up on this country, and you find a lot of people that don't get involved and don't vote because they think it doesn't matter. And so what you can do is if you get a young candidate like me with a passion for this country that runs a race and actually wins a congressional seat, to show people that we can actually enact change in our republic again. If we get people inspired to make a difference and get involved, that's how we'll reclaim our republic. That's how we'll win our country back.
I mean, because that's pretty important, it sounds like, especially with people like me. He was a young voter, doesn't really understand the whole world of what you're voting for, what CD08 is, and especially with how bills and what power Congress has, because that's one thing that I always wonder is when certain things, like you said, in the past, Brady tried to pass something and said that's the best we could do now. I just don't know. I don't have a face of that kind of battle. Why is it so hard to get things that are right for the country to get done? And the way you're kind of your perspective about it, you're kind of just you want to change things completely, turn it around.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have misinterpreted what Washington's supposed to do. To me, it's simple. As your congressman, I want to go to Washington and protect your freedoms. I want to give you the freedom to live in this republic and do what you choose to do. I don't want some master dictating how I live my life from Washington, D.C. A lot of the laws that Washington gets involved with, really, if you study the Constitution, those are state rights issues. Those are things that should be decided here on the state level, from education, EPA, transportation stuff. These are all state issues, and Washington gets involved because it's about power and control, and they want to control us. They want to control our futures. They want to control our money. They want to maintain power over us like we're some sort of servants, and we're not. We're free people. We have rights given to us by God, and it's my duty as your congressman to protect them.
Actually, that brings up another question I have is, would you say the Texas 8th Congressional District is more of a representation of the people here in Montgomery County, or is it more we elect this position to just say, we like this guy, we hope he makes the right decisions? Because one thing, what impact can you directly have with Montgomery County through your decisions making? And also when you're making these decisions, I guess it really does come down to like who you are as a person, what your beliefs are, and I guess the good of the people. What happens if you're in a scenario where it's better for Montgomery County, might not be better for the country? That's what I'm trying to get to. Does that make sense? I know it's a strange question.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I get this a lot, and I try to remind people, as your congressman, it's not my job to go to Washington and get tax goodies to send back to Montgomery County or to San Jacinto County or to Walker County. My job is to protect your freedoms, and your freedoms is to allow you to live free with your own money and make your own decisions. It's when we start electing people and we get a group of businesses that say, well, I want you to go to Washington and get this tax thing for my business. It's not the government's role to pick and choose winners. It's not their responsibility. These are all state and county issues. It's my job to make sure your freedoms are protected.
In what way could you say that we can actually keep, I guess, tabs on you? because that's one thing I always wondered. The only time we ever get to know what our current congressman does is just after the vote. Is there any ways you plan on being more educational and also informative to the voters here in Montgomery County if you do become the Texas 8th Congressional District Congressman?
You know, the beautiful thing is I have a daytime job, and my job is I design and develop computer networks. With the modern advent in technology and the internet, it's really easy to keep track of these guys and what they're doing in Washington. One thing I would do is start a website. I've worked very hard for the last 3 years to educate voters on the role of the federal government, because I think a lot of people don't truly understand what the government's role in the society is. So I want to make a website that actually talks about the bills, puts the bills out, lets people know what's going on, try to explain to them why we vote no, because if I go to Washington, D.C., and they put a bill on my desk that's 2,000 pages and one page of it has something that's unconstitutional, and I like the rest of the bill, I'm going to vote no for it. At no point is it okay to violate the Constitution just to get something that you may like.
I mean, that's to me, it's nice to know that, and especially see it being in place, because I know as we grow older, I know my generation, the generations before me, will want to see this kind of action, and especially accountability. It's always one of those big things I've grown up, and my father taught me, is accountability is what kind of drives sometimes your people, and that's how you can become a better leader, is holding yourself accountable for your decisions and the consequences. So we're going to take a quick break here on Mornings with Lone Star, Meet the Candidates. We're talking to Craig McMichael, who's running for CD08, that's Congressman, for our Texas 8th Congressional District. Craig, if you don't mind holding on, we're hanging out with Nathan Arizati. We're going to take a quick music break, and when we come back, we'll have more questions and more information coming from Craig McMichael. All right, you got to forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Trying to get a lot out this morning here on this Martin Luther King Day. But we'll be right back here on IRLoneStar.com with Mornings with Lone Star. Here is Josh Greider, You'll Dream, I'll Drive. You're listening to Lone Star Internet Radio here on IRLoneStar.com.
Behind every victory is someone who helped make it happen. Call them mentors, coaches, or even mom or dad. At Northwestern Mutual, we call them partners, the financial professionals that can help you tap into strengths you might not even know you have, and guide you where you want to be financially and personally, because no one wins alone. Start building financial security with Northwestern Mutual. Contact Michael Young today. Visit michael.b.young@nm.com. You and Northwestern Mutual, stronger together. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
That was Kylie Frey right there with Rodeo Man. 9:24 here on Mornings with Lone Star. Meet the Candidates. Craig McMichael is on the phone. You can catch him on Facebook and also online at McMichaelforCongress.com to get everything you want to know about this man who's running for CD08, which is Congress District 08 here in all the counties basically surrounding Montgomery County. I'm sitting here with Nathan Arizati of Montgomery County Lifestyle. Craig, are you still on the line?
I'm here.
Fantastic. I've been learning too much about what's going on with this congressional district and the power that is in the seat. What's interesting to me, and always like talking to politicians about this, is you're in office. What do you see in the future, Craig, of being the biggest issue and something that you actually can tackle instead of just dreaming about it, or give me something feasible that what you can do while being our congressman.
Yeah, first I'd like to point out, politician is not me. I'm a patriot. I have no desire to be a politician. It's my love for this country that led me to run for this office, and I will never become a politician. That'll never happen. One of the biggest issues that I think we can actually attain is term limits. If you look, polls show that around 80% of the American population support term limits for Congress. Through the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, we put term limits on the president. It's time to do that in Washington for the House of Representatives and the Senate. The people support it, and if the people want something, they can make it happen. If you look historically, with the 18th Amendment, when we got prohibition, the 21st Amendment was only pushed 17 years later because the people demanded it. They were about to call a convention of the states to require it, and it got pushed through by the House of Representatives. So the people control this country. We, the people in this republic, are the most powerful thing. We just have to stand together and work for a common goal to free ourselves from the burden of this overbearing federal government that we have today.
What would you say? Give me some examples with that overbearing the country or the government's putting on us today. Do you have any good examples?
Oh, I have some great ones. So some my opponent voted for, the Patriot Act. When they first voted for the Patriot Act, allowed the federal government, an FBI agent, to come in your house without a warrant signed by a judge. Our current representatives also supported NSA spying. They're watching your cell phones. It's a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. He voted to support the National Defense Authorization Act that allowed the U.S. government to arrest U.S. citizens and detain them indefinitely without a trial. That violates a handful of your constitutional rights. If we could just get back to where we're free people without the government trying to control our everyday life. And actually, one of the big ones I've always pushed is the 16th Amendment in the IRS, the income tax. I personally believe the income tax is a violation of your constitutional rights. If you read the Fourth Amendment, it says you should be secure in your private property against illegal search and seizure without a writ or warrant signed by a judge. So when the government seizes your private property, your income, without a writ or warrant signed by a judge, they're violating your constitutional rights. The income tax needs to go. The IRS needs to be shut down. We need to unleash true economic freedom in this country and allow people to decide what they want to do with their money, not give it to the government and have them blackmail us just to give it back to the states.
Now, how do you go about doing that exactly in the House of Representatives? How would you go about that?
Well, it took us over 100 years to get where we are now. It's going to take a long time to change it. And it starts with the heart and minds of the people. And this is something I learned in the Marine Corps. You win a war by winning the hearts and minds of the people in the countries you're fighting in. You have to do this in America because we're fighting a war, and our enemy is the Washington cartel in D.C. We have to wake up as a people and stand together. And so you go and you talk to people, and you explain your plan to them. There's 435 congressmen, so me going to Washington, D.C., I can't change it. And actually, I believe this is the problem, is everybody is always asking me, Craig, how do we know when you get elected you're not going to go to Washington and become one of them? I think the problem is we elect people that want to be politicians, and they think they're going to go to Washington and change it. And in the course of trying to change Washington, it changes them because you become part of the system. You sacrifice your morals and your beliefs over here because you believe you're going to get what you want later down the road. You can't sacrifice anything. You have to remember you are sent there to represent the people. You're sent there to protect freedom, and your one job is to do that. It's never going to come out of Washington. The people are going to have to stand up and demand it. So you elect a representative like me, you send a 20-year major disgrace to me, which is a constitutional violation of Kevin Brady. And then I start talking about it in public, and we work on getting other representatives in Washington, D.C. that stand with me because people follow leadership. That's all. They're dying for somebody to stand up and be a leader. And right now we have absolutely no leaders in Washington.
Well, with that in mind, and bringing your morals and beliefs to Congress, this country is, it's a couple hundred years old. Would you say, or what would you guess or predict is in the coming future, what are our main issues as a country? Because if we need leaders, we need to have strong leaders for these type of issues we're going to have in the future. What would be the biggest issue coming in say, the next 10 years?
Yeah, the biggest issue is our national debt. It's a little over $18 trillion right now. It's unsustainable. If you look historically, no country's ever survived a debt-to-GDP ratio of 125, except for the United States of America, and that was in 1946, after the entire world was destroyed from World War II. So America really used our economic powerhouse to rebuild the world, and it allows us to pay down our debt. We're fast approaching that number again, a 125 debt-to-GDP ratio. And if we hit it, it's going to collapse this country. And you can look historically as what's happened. You take the Soviet Union back in 1991. That's basically what happened to them, is they went bankrupt, and their nation collapsed, and little nations formed out of it. That's what you'll find here in America. That's what we're headed for, is the United States of America will no longer exist. If we don't stand together and realize we have to live within our means, we have to be fiscally responsible, we cannot run up these massive debts. If we care about our children and our children's children, it's time for us to hold the line and say no more. We have to make a stand.
I know a couple of questions I have that I think are on a big national level, but affect us here too. And if we have time to get into it this segment / roll over the next one, a couple of things. A lot of people are talking about Gitmo, and I know how I feel about it. But if you get a chance, talk about your feeling about Gitmo. I don't know exactly what your opponent, Mr. Brady, and some of the other guys feel about it. And then I want to come back to something that I think we touched on earlier too, and that's the IRS, and that's the fair tax, a flat tax, or this tax, or whatever. I'd love to know what you want to do as far as that goes, because in my opinion, that's a big hot button that people touch on, go, oh yeah, that's cool, and then forget about it.
Yeah, so Gitmo is your first question. I'm a big fan of Gitmo. I actually think we spend too much money being nice to them with the $1 million soccer fields and all the perks that we give them. People forget these were enemy combatants that were fighting U.S. troops overseas. We're technically in a war with terror. People try to say that we're not at war with terror anymore. I fought this war. Islam is at war with us. We need to accept that. They're not at war with America. They're at war with Christianity. That's why you see the attacks in Europe. They're coming to our shores. You saw it in California, in Dallas last year. We need to accept the fact that whether we want it to be this way or not, they want to kill us. We need Gitmo. We need to keep the people locked in there. You cannot bring them to the shores of the U.S. You cannot try them in American courts. They need to be held in military tribunals. We need to understand what we're dealing with, and we need to deal with it. We need to allow our troops to go fight this war and win it.
So why are we letting the president release these people? 10 people just get in the process of getting released. What's going on there, man?
You know, he needs congressional approval to do it, and so...
So why is he doing it? Why are we letting him?
Personally, I think it's because Congress is more worried about maintaining their own seat in power than doing what's right. You take the Bo Bergendahl trade. Our president gave 5 terrorists and $5 million to our enemy for an Army soldier who had deserted, and now is being tried for that. And he did it without congressional approval. That's against the Constitution. If we had any Congress man or woman that had any sort of courage or spine, they would have started impeachment processes right there on the President of the United States of America, and they would have removed him from office. He aided and abetted our enemies.
Which is a scary thing to think about, because, you know, that's a pretty strong allegation to say, but when it comes down to the proof in the pudding kind of thing, like, what way can they be held accountable? How can the president be held accountable for this? Because to me, it sounds like a majority of the United States just doesn't care about really anything, unfortunately. And what would you say? How do you get these people off their seats?
Well, the problem is it seems like Washington's in for protecting Washington. You take when Eric Holder was the Attorney General, Fast and Furious went on where our government was selling guns to the Mexican cartels, I believe in an attempt to attack our Second Amendment rights. Attorney General Holder went before Congress and lied under oath, and Congress did nothing about it. You have congressmen that get charged with tax evasion. You know, Nancy Pelosi spends $140,000 on alcohol on her private airplane. Kevin Brady brags about flying home because he never moved to Washington. He stays here to be close to the people, but he charges our tax dollars to fly back and forth. They live like royalty. They live like kings. They don't understand the common people in this country, and that's the problem. Is we need to stand up together and realize that it is us against them. The past 3 years of my campaign, that's what I've been working diligently for, is to make sure that people understood that we need representation of the people, not representation of Washington, D.C. When you get somebody up there that actually speaks the truth and starts fighting the powers in Washington, the people will see what's going on. I think most people don't know because the news doesn't report it. People don't talk about it. And obviously your congressman isn't going to come home and tell you the truth. They spend lots of money on propaganda campaigns to kind of dissuade you from what's really going on in Washington. They talk about how it's amazing the past 5 years everybody's all of a sudden constitutionally conservative, but the country hasn't been constitutionally conservative for a long time.
That's probably
if they were truly constitutionally conservative, they would have stuck by their values and we wouldn't have the government we have today.
Now, you think that's because of the lack of leadership?
I think it's because of the money and leadership. So there is no leadership in Washington, and these guys get in there and they want to maintain their own money and power structure. They sell their souls to maintain power in Washington, D.C. We need people with a moral base, a fabric that will hold true to this country. Somebody, you look at any of the opponents that Brady has, they're all three of us are good men. Somebody that actually is willing to sacrifice their life for this country would never go to Washington, D.C. and let us down. That's why Allen West is so popular in this area, because here's a man that served his country, was willing to die for America, and went to Washington and did the right thing.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, Craig, if you don't mind. One thing I want you to kind of think about is one of the biggest topics is the debt. And really, you know, do we just hire a really good accountant and we just figure it out? Or I want to talk a little bit more about that, because that's really interesting how we got here. and how bad it is, and really what solutions you have for us as a representative of Montgomery County, because we were Montgomery County's community radio station. So think about that if you don't mind when we come back, and we'll ask you talk more about the debt. And also, I want to talk more about your campaign and how we can get people off their seats and go vote, and especially not just vote, but hold people accountable in the future for their decisions. So if you stick around here on Lone Star Net Radio, we're going to take a quick commercial break and maybe a couple songs. So we'll be right back here on Mornings with Lone Star with Craig McMichael. Find him on Facebook, McMichael for Congress, and then also online at McMichaelforCongress.com. We'll be back after this.
Hi, this is Catering Cody with All-Star Catering Company. We've been catering for Montgomery County since 2005. We are now offering take-home casseroles available for you to pick up Monday through Friday. To learn more, give us a call at 936-228-0440. Send an email to info@cateringbyallstar.com or check us out on Facebook at Catering by All-Star. So come on in and get your dinner tonight and feed your family the simple way with All-Star Catering.
Imagine a place where you can sip on Italian coffee and have a sandwich, followed by a fabulous, delectable pastry. We invite you to stop by Conroe Coffee to experience old world charm. Conroe Coffee is located next to the historic Creighton Theater in downtown Conroe. We are open 7 days a week. Please check our website for business hours at conroecoffee.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a caffeinated day.
Edmondson right there. I Can't Run. You're listening to Lone Star in the mornings here at irlonestar.com. It is 9:45. We still have Craig McMichael on the line for Meet the Candidates. It's our last segment, so we're kind of be winding things down and giving Craig an opportunity just to talk about his campaign. Before we get to that soapbox moment for you, Craig, I have a question. When you're running, and this isn't your first time running for Congress, what is your strategy? Because that's something that, to me, you sit down and you talk to your significant other or you talk to your campaign manager. I imagine you had a lengthy conversation about your strategy to win, because you want to win, but you got to go about it a certain way. So can you describe your strategy without giving too much away for your opponents?
Yeah, I can do that. So when I first ran, obviously I'd never run for any office before. We tried a lot of different techniques. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. We went to county fairs, we went to rodeos, we did block walking, we put ads in papers, we put out a bunch of yard signs. We really evaluated what was effective and what wasn't in the last campaign, because when I started this race in 2013, the promise I made to people was Kevin Brady had voted against our Constitution, and if it took me 20 years, I was going to run for this office until he was no longer congressman. At some point, we have to start fighting for our country. So what we've done this time is we really focused in on, we have the who actually votes in primaries. We really focused in on reaching out and meeting the voters. We have block walking this Saturday. If you reach out to our Facebook, you can come out and help us block walk. We go around to the actual doors of the people that actually vote in primaries. We've hit about 7,000 houses so far. Our goal was 10,000 before early voting started. And that was the most effective means we found to reach voters and actually get them out to vote. And then once early voting starts, you set up phone banks and you reach out to these people you've made contact with and remind them, hey, it's voting time. You need to go out to the polls and vote. It's about reaching the voters. I found the yard signs not to be entirely effective. Nobody's ever really gone down the road and seen a yard sign and thought, I'm going to go vote for this guy because I like that sign. We're going to have some of those coming out, but really it's about shaking hands and talking to voters and let them see who you are as a person.
Well, again, we appreciate you coming on Meet the Candidates, because I think this is another thing as a community radio station we should offer to the people and just give a platform for all the candidates, everyone, and just give an opportunity for an hour at least, because I know you guys usually only get about a minute or two at these forums. With us wrapping this up, we got about 5 more minutes. I want to encourage people to go vote, and I want to encourage people to get educated. I think with your position in running for Congress, it's a lot bigger beast than locally, of course, because of the importance and especially the coverage area of Congressional District 8. Now, when you're talking to people and you want them to come vote for you, I'm going to give you just see what you can do. Tell me, why should I vote for you?
Yeah, the main reason is you want somebody that actually has read and understands the Constitution and is going to stand up and fight for it in Washington, D.C. Somebody who understands the federal government is not supposed to dictate our freedoms. They're supposed to protect them. somebody that understands to send the power back to the states. All the unconstitutional things the government does right now, like education, EPA, Homeland Security, I don't understand that it does the same thing the FBI is supposed to do. It just seems like the federal government's been growing on a massive scale, and it's time for somebody to go to Washington who actually doesn't want to increase Washington, D.C., but wants to increase the power of the state again. That's what we work hard on doing. That's what we've been reaching out to people and try to tell them. And look, I remind people, one of the concerns I've heard lately since we have all the candidates in the race is there's 4 of us now. It's Kevin Brady, it's myself, Steve Toth, and Andre Dean. And people are concerned that with the 3 opponents that, we're going to split the vote and Brady's going to win. And I try to remind them that's not the truth. Look, there are people that support Craig McMichael. There are people that support Steve Toth. There are people that support Andre Dean. It's about getting voters out to the polls and actually getting them to vote. The more people that vote in this election, the larger number of votes Kevin Brady will need to reach 50%. And if we can get him below 50% and have one of us take him in a runoff, I've already told Toth and Dean myself, if they go into the runoff with Brady, I will do everything in my power to campaign for them to make sure that Kevin Brady loses this office. It's all about removing this man and showing him that the people have power in this country. You cannot go and vote against our will and do whatever you want to grow Washington, D.C. and remain in office any longer.
Well, there you go. That actually makes a lot of sense for the county to get out and vote. It is important. One thing I would say reflects the importance is there are 4 people running for this position. So there is somewhat of a public cry out that we want to have options. Would you say that?
Yeah, I was encouraged. People thought I'd be upset that others joined the race. I started this race in January of 2013, and everybody said it was impossible, that Kevin Brady was unbeatable, he had too much money. But I still believe in the simple fact that in America, anything you believe in is possible if you work hard enough for it. I worked my tail off. I raised and spent $20,000, and I got 20,000 votes. It's about $1 a vote. Brady spent just under $1 million to get 41,000 votes. We were 11,000 votes shy of actually flipping the election and winning. I got 32% of the district. I actually got 36% of Montgomery County. And I think what I showed people, what I showed Andre Dean and Steve Toth, is that Brady can be beat. And so it gave them the courage to join this race. And look, my ultimate goal was to make sure Brady is removed from office. Now, I believe I'm the best man for that job. But if somebody else does it, then I've accomplished my mission, and I can move on and do other things in life. So, yeah, we have 3 opponents now. That's great. Between the 3 of us, let's take Kevin Brady down. Let's show him that you cannot go against the will of the people and maintain your power in Washington, D.C.
That's Craig McMichael. He's running for Congress, so get out and vote. Coming up early voting in February and also voting March 1st. Thank you, Craig, for taking the time to be on Meet the Candidates with Lone Star Internet Radio. I hope you have a wonderful Martin Luther King Day, and God bless, all that good stuff.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Craig.
I'm hanging out with Nathan Arizona. We're closing out this segment. Coming up next is the Cindy Cochran Show, with our usual Monday guest, Jimmy the C, and also we have Bob Berry. He's not going to be in, unfortunately, with the Conroe Police Department, but Cindy's here. She's mouthing to me right now. It's nice. Nathan, who do we have lined up for tomorrow?
We don't have anybody lined up for tomorrow yet. I've got a couple people that talked about wanting to come in. I know I spoke with Congressman Brady Saturday night, and the problem we're going to have to figure out here is he might be able to make it on a Thursday, but we've got all our Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays booked up for 4 weeks. So we're going to have to
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah, we're going to have to make a decision here, and I may reach out to the other opponents and stuff and see what they think about not giving him a special time.
Too bad, so sad.
But a Thursday.
That's my position. 9:52 here at IRLoneStar.com. Mornings with Lone Star. Cindy Cochran Show coming up here on IR Lone Star. So stick around. Here's Scooter Brown Band with their new one. This song is called Hard Times.
Thank you for checking out a podcast on Lone Star Internet Radio. Lone Star Internet Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas. If you are interested in sponsoring a program for Lone Star Internet Radio, just visit us online at irlonestar.com or message us on Facebook. We are always taking song requests on Twitter, and if you are interested in getting involved with the station by either hosting your own show or if you want to be a DJ, just contact Dick at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Internet Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station.